Thanks for downloading the Swearing In Podcast, where you'll hear the origin stories of those who chose to serve. So ground your gear, take a seat, and listen up. The Swearing In Podcast starts right now.
Heads up, and welcome to the Swearing In Podcast. I am your host, Marty Smith. Today, my guest is U.S. Air Force Master Sergeant retired Jimmy Smith. Jimmy grew up in Arkansas and joined the Air Force in 1994 as a 1 in 5 electronic Signals Intelligence Exploitation. His first assignment was to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Ohio, with the then National Air Intelligence Center. Later, he was assigned to Misawa, Japan as an F-16 targeteer. Throughout his career, he deployed to Saudi Arabia, as well as 4 deployments to Udeid, Qatar. He retired after his last assignment at the Defense Intelligence Agency-Charlottsville in 2016. So there's some background on Jimmy. Now let's get on with the interview. Today, I'm sitting here with the United States Air Force Master Sergeant retired Jimmy Smith. Jimmy, thanks for taking the time today.
Thanks for having me on.
Did you grow up in Arkansas?
Yeah, I was born in Aurora, Illinois, but my mom and dad moved to Arkansas when I was 2.
Oh, so your formative years, if you will, were all in Arkansas.
Yeah.
What were you doing before you got into the military, or what led you to have the idea to join the military? Did you have a history of it in your family at all?
No. One of my cousins was in the Air Force. My stepdad was a Marine. And, he's like, when I was really young, I thought about going in the Marines. I thought it sounded really cool. But he was like, don't go in the Marines. He was in the Marines in Nam, so it was a little bit different. Like, we watched Platoon together, and he couldn't sleep for like 2 or 3 months after that.
Oh, really?
He had some scars. So I didn't even think about the Marines. Army was never even a thought in my mind because some of the people I knew were in the Army and they didn't. Yeah. But so I thought,
that'll do it.
And I guess growing up in such a small town, like my graduating class was 35 people. And of those 35, I started kindergarten with probably 30 of them. So
really?
I just escaped that small town.
Well, I mean, what were you doing your senior year?
Junior, senior year, I was just doing the bare minimum to get through school. My dad, he was an amazing alcoholic that worked out of Chicago a lot. So I film during the winter. Otherwise, I was pretty much either living by myself in his house or with my grandma and grandpa.
Yeah.
And sometimes with my mom. Depends on, because I went to school in the same place after they got divorced when I was 11. So I still went to school at the same place I always went. Yeah. But she moved like 40 miles away and it was a different school district. So I stayed up at my dad's house most of the time. And I was working at a grocery store. I worked at a fish restaurant, and the guy that I worked for there was retired Air Force E7. And he always talked about how much he loved the Air Force and how much, it really set him up for life. So he was probably one of the people I talked to the most.
Really?
About, what the Air Force could provide me.
When did you decide to go talk to a recruiter?
I was probably in my junior year, and they came to our school and they did the whole ASVAB for whoever was there.
Oh, okay.
It was me and my ex-wife were arguing the whole night before because we started dating my junior year. We were arguing the night before, and I got to school and I was working off about 2 hours of sleep and high Mountain Dew. I still did okay on the ASVAB because he called me back and said, "Hey, what are you thoughts about joining the Air Force?" I was like, "That sounds great. Can I get out of this little town?" So after that, I kept in contact with the recruiter, and my parents signed for me to get married during my senior year. So I was still 17, hadn't graduated yet. There was no baby on the way, but I joined the Air Force right out of high school. I went to MEPS in July after I graduated.
Okay. But where was the MEPS at?
It was in Little Rock, Arkansas, so it was about 4 hours away from where I lived.
Did recruiter drive you up there, or did you have to drive yourself?
Yep, he drove 3 of us up there. I never met those people before. I never saw them after, but there was 3 of us in his car going to Little Rock.
For 4 hours. Great.
Yeah.
So you do your MEP stuff, you spend the night, they fly you out?
Well, that's the thing. I joined in July, went to MEPS in July. My grandmother that helped raise me passed away the day left for MEPS. So they flew me back and canceled my enlistment. And so I had to go through all the paperwork again and sign up for another date. So I ended up going in November for real, because I went back and, dealt with the family stuff for 4 or 5 months.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't really a delayed enlistment. They just restarted you back in November then.
Yeah. Yep. So I went from November. I didn't really plan it out like Jake did, I wasn't worried about the heat in Texas, but November was a perfect time to go to Texas for basic training.
Sure. Well, when you were going through, you took ASVAB and stuff. Did they contract you up for a job?
Oh yeah. I wanted to do something outside. I wanted to be like a cop or a firefighter or CE. I had really low expectations of careers. I just wanted to do something I enjoyed. So I came in open general at my recruiter's suggestion. He's like, hey, you get in open general and you can just pick any job you want to after you go through basic. Well,
what a sell. What a sell he did.
So my recruiter is a huge liar. I didn't get the job I wanted to. They looked at my ASVAB scores, and I didn't score as high as Scott Westfall because I'm not as smart as he is. So I wasn't the top scorer in the state of Arkansas, but I was pretty good. Because the only jobs they offered me were all Intel jobs.
Well, that's not bad.
Oh, Intel, that sounds really fun. I'll do this Signals Intelligence. That sounds cool. I'll get to work with radars. Me thinking I would be working with the radars.
Yeah.
Having wanted to do a job outside and then thinking I would get to work with radars, I spent the next 21 years in buildings with no windows. So.
I was going to say you chose one career where you'll never be outside.
Like, you remember you were wanting to work with radars? Well, you're never ever going to do that.
Yeah, we're gonna put you in a building. You got to badge 5 times to get to your workstation. So
yeah.
What did they tell you that though? Towards the end of basic?
It was probably, they gave us the rips. It's so long ago, but I think it's probably the 2nd or 3rd week of basic. They gave us these little rips and said, pick one of these 5.
Oh, yeah.
1 to 5 positions of where you'd like to do it.
Yeah.
And I think SIGINT or ELANT was probably 2nd or 3rd on my list, and that's the one I got. I found out I'd be going to a beautiful Goodfellow Air Force Base for tech school.
Oh, great.
First bases ever.
How long was your tech school?
I think it was 4 months. And that's kind of a cool thing too, because after my ex-wife got pregnant during my senior year of high school, so I'd already committed to the Air Force at that point.
Yeah.
We were married. But our baby was due in the end of December, and I was going to be in tech school. Well, the cool thing was being in tech school during Christmas break or Christmas is they sent us home for Christmas. Well, I went home on a Greyhound bus from
nice.
A little town in Arkansas.
Yeah.
Got there, and I was home for probably 6 days, and they induced my ex-wife's labor while I was home. So I got to see my son be born.
Oh, wow.
On bus back to basic or tech school probably 3 days later.
I mean, all things considered, you could have missed it. You could have done that. Something you got to go.
So it all worked out great.
Yeah. Oh man. So you were in Texas well into the next summer, right?
Yeah. I think I graduated tech school in March, I think it was. And then from there, I went up to Dayton, Ohio as my first duty assignment at the National Air Intelligence Center, which is now the National Air and Space Intelligence Center.
Oh, the dreaded NASIC.
Yep, up at Wright-Patterson, Dayton, Ohio.
And that was your first assignment?
Yep, went there. That was my first one. I was there for 3 years, I think.
And what was your job? What were you doing?
I was doing ground-based analysis of rivet joint and combat scent collects. So this is how long ago this was. They would collect the signals on these big 1-inch thick digital analog tapes, like you see in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Record the signals on those, and we're all sitting there with our headphones on. So we were the ultimate Air Force nerds. That are on in front of an oscilloscope or a spectrum analyzer, breaking down a signal.
Oh, really? Is that what it was? So
it was pretty cool.
You were just looking at frequencies.
Yeah, well, I was looking at frequencies. I was looking at pulse durations, pulse recurrence intervals, just kind of breaking down all the aspects of what makes a signal a signal.
Yeah.
And from there, you can, look at the strengths and weaknesses of different signals for different radars.
I mean, in concept, it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
Second week on the job has got to be probably mind-numbingly repetitive.
It was pretty stressful for a while, just trying to pick up how to do everything. But then once you get it down, it's just, Groundhog's Day for the next 3 years, doing the same job over and over again.
Did you take it home and see it in your dreams kind of thing?
Yeah,
when you get when you get that much repetition of something.
Yeah.
How was Ohio?
Ohio wasn't that bad. It was a little colder, but really Ohio is not that much different than Arkansas. I mean, I know people in Ohio don't want to hear that, but it's pretty much the same. You're just a little bit farther north. Oh, that's one thing I learned about living in the Arkansas, Missouri area after being born in Illinois is all those states in that area are pretty much the same.
Really?
They just all think they're better than each other.
So your first assignment's coming up. I guess your enlistment's coming up. How long did you enlist for?
I did everything wrong with my enlistment, so I didn't enlist for the extra years. I didn't get a guaranteed job. So
was there a bonus? Was there a bonus to go into?
Huh?
Was there a bonus to go into Intel?
There was a bonus because you get to come in as like an A1C, and I came in as an Airman Basic. So everybody else, all my friends in tech school, they all enlisted for 6 years. And they all came in as like E3s. E3s. I came in as an E1, which is
Jesus.
I still have my pay stubs. I still have my pay stubs from back then. When I was in tech school, I was getting paid $432 every 2 weeks.
That's crazy when you look at that. You're like, how the hell did I survive on that, right?
No, I don't, because my ex-wife wasn't working. She didn't work until after we got divorced. She worked at the mall for like 6 months when we lived in Ohio, but she never worked. So I don't know how we made it on that much money.
Well, because you came in married, so you never had live in the dorms or anything. You got housing right away then.
Nope. I had to live in the dorms at tech school for the first month. Then after that, if you were married, you can move off base.
Oh, okay.
We move off base, but we had to live in the worst part of San Angelo because we couldn't afford any rent because we were living off Airman Basic salary.
Right. Okay, so you only enlisted for 3 years?
4 years.
Oh, 4 years. Okay.
And then the Air Force plays these games where, you enlisted for 4 years? Well, we're going to give you an assignment at 3 years. But in order to accept that assignment, you either have to re-enlist or you have to get out.
Yeah. That's a free agent game they're playing there.
Right at my 3-year markish, they gave me an assignment to Misawa, Japan.
Ooh.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, that would seem like a pretty easy re-enlistment decision.
Yeah, it was. That's the point, though, where my career, like a lot of my friends stayed in ELINT, and they got to go all the ELINT schools and do all these career broadening, make themselves a better ELINT analyst.
Yeah.
My career path took me to Misawa Air Base, Japan, where I became a briefer and a targeteer for a fighter squadron, which has nothing to do with ELINT.
Wait, say that again. You became a what?
A briefer and a targeteer.
Oh, okay.
So
and
their routes and stuff. I'd brief them on different threats that they're flying into the regions. So that was super awesome. I loved that job. That's probably my favorite job in the Air Force. But
really,
it isn't close to what I was getting trained to do. So,
sure.
Killed my career, really, from that point.
You think so?
Well, as far as being an ELINT analyst, because all my peers were going to all these ELINT schools, and they offer them all up at Fort Meade. It's a huge schoolhouse up there for all these advanced techniques and stuff. I never got.
What was
my path?
I'm sorry. What was your AFSC?
I was a 1 in 5 back then. So it was
1 in 5. Okay.
And then while I was in Space Command, they combined 1 in 5s and 1 in 2s together, which is funny because they combined them while I was in Space Command. So we had these 2 career fields. We're going to combine them together. But 1 in 5s from that point forward were known as 1 in 2 alphas. 1 in 2s from that point forward are known as 1 in 2 Charlies. So they were still separated. I don't know why they combined them just to separate them again, but they did.
So they did the shred outs underneath the 1 and 2.
Yeah. So like, hey, we're going to combine these 2 career fields because they're similar.
Yeah.
We're make them separate. So great idea. It's Air Force thought process.
And it's all, right. So tell me about Misawa.
I love that assignment because I get to work with the fighter pilots, and it's a different world.
Tell me about what was your duties out there?
So they told me I was the ELANT analyst in charge of updating the load files on the F-16 with the current ELANT parametric data. So every once in a while, an update would come up to radar. We have to update the jets to be able to recognize that radar when it lit them up on the ground.
Okay, so it'll tell them you're being scanned by a certain type of radar.
Yeah, so like the radar detectors, I remember back whenever I was probably 18 or 20, cops started using lasers as radar guns. Well, before that, you have like a C and an expand radar, and then all of a sudden you had the laser. But when your radar detector would go off on your dash, it would highlight which one of those it was that was lighting you up, whether the cop was using a C-band radar gun, expand radar gun, or whatever. I'm using the wrong one, but it's along those lines.
It's a good example. It still illustrates the point.
Yeah. So that's what we did on ours. So like, let's say a surface air missile system, if they changed what type of radio frequency it used and yet flew over that radar system without knowing what it was supposed to be looking at, it might not see it anymore. So we had to go and update those to make sure that they could recognize what was looking at them. That was pretty cool.
Now, did the enemy change those freaks constantly? The enemy just had what they had.
They weren't smart. So, we were going at that time. It was Operation Southern Watch, Operation Northern Watch. It was 98 to 2002 when I was in Japan. So the Iraqis were not smart enough to do that. The Koreans, North Koreans, weren't really. The main updates we would do were because of the Chinese and the Russians, which they weren't really. I mean, theoretically, they are a peer-to-peer threat, so they were a threat, but we weren't flying against them. But we still had to update our data tables because for some trickle-down effect, the Iraqis or North Koreans might get that data and update their radars.
Sure.
So I got
That's pretty cool.
To Iraq or Saudi Arabia, which was pretty cool.
Oh, you deployed from Misawa to Saudi?
Yeah. So when I was at Wright-Patterson, I deployed to Saudi Arabia with the Rivet Joint doing ground-based analysis. And that was okay. But then I deployed again with the F-16s in 1998. And that was pretty cool because totally different mission. These guys were actually flying, doing their mission with the squadron I was at was suppression of enemy air defenses. So the SEAD mission.
Yeah.
Pretty cool getting to work with those guys, knowing that they're the ones keeping the enemy radars turned off, because if they turn the radars on, we're going to launch a missile that's going to destroy the radar. So they all kept them turned off when the F-16s were flying.
Out of Misawa, I'm trying to think. Back, I remember that what was the big exercise they always do in Korea?
Pinsiri.
Was that what it was?
There's a Pinsiri. They have something that's called, I can't remember what it's called, like a Bull Eagle or some craziness like that.
Did you guys play in those exercises, or did you have your own?
We did, because our job was to deploy to Korea. A couple of times we exercised that, and it sucked, but it was also cool. They load us all in Japan, and the F-16s would fly over, and all the analysts and all the crew chiefs and flight line support would all load up on a C-130 and fly over to Korea. And then we do an exercise for a couple of weeks. then we'd all fly back to Japan. So it was cool.
Huh.
You're flying with all your fellow coworkers.
Yeah.
And then, we all get hammered every night because that's what we do when you're 20, 21, 22.
Of course. Ultra focus lens. That's the one I was thinking of.
Okay, yeah.
Did you guys do anything in that?
Just that one time I flew over for that mission.
Oh, okay.
We flew over there and set up our little tents and pretended to be fighting the North Koreans. It was pretty fun.
Oh, they put you in tents?
Well, that's what our analysis area was in a tent.
Yeah. Would you, if we fought, would Misawa go anywhere? Wouldn't they? Aren't you able to do your mission right from there?
Yeah, and I mean, in all reality, there's been so many assessments done on that. If we actually fought North Korea, the whole top half of South Korea is going to be destroyed by artillery. So there's not going to be any.
Right, I know. There's many guns.
Camp Humphreys, it's all going to be gone. So we'd have to fly out of Japan, which is not that far of a flight. So yeah.
You stayed there for 3 years?
I stayed there for 3 years. There's one funny story from that base. So being an intel squadron supporting a fighter squadron, we tried to do their little fighter squadron traditions, which nerdy intel people trying to be cool like fighter pilots is just a recipe for disaster.
Right.
So they'd have naming ceremonies, and what the pilots would do is they'd give you like 10 shitty names, and you had to either bribe them with like nudie magazines or alcohol or doing some stupid trick for them to get out of that. But the only drink you drank was Jeremiah weed, which is like a $8 bottle of whiskey, which is disgusting.
Right.
So we had our naming ceremony on Wednesday before Thanksgiving because we're going to be off the rest of the week.
Okay.
So they gave me a bunch of really awful names like Buckety Fuckface, Fucko the Clown, Douchebag McGee. They had like really stupid names.
Yeah.
And so to get out of those names, you'd have to do something dumb. Well, I was taking shots of Jeremiah weed. The way they'd have you do a shot, you just turn it up and take like 2 bubbles out of the bottle. That was considered a shot.
Oh, okay.
Well, I got so drunk on Jeremiah weed that I passed out with my face laying in a urinal. Like,
did you really?
It was like cradling my chin. And I was just passed out there, and they took a picture of me and made a coffee mug for my going away.
Nice.
So my commander and my first sergeant had to carry me back to my house that day because I was so drunk.
Damn.
Some of our really good friends, so we lived in a tower, and some of our really good friends were having like a big Thanksgiving family dinner at the bottom floor of our tower in this like the big conference room.
Yeah.
Well, my commander and first sergeant walked me through the conference room to get to the elevator. And I was like all drunk with puke all over my uniform. And they were like, it's like a wounded warrior. I got my arm around each one of them. And they could finally get up to my house or our tower. I lived on the 7th floor. I get up to the tower and I'm passed out and I'm hungover like shit for the next 2 days because that whiskey was bad. My ex-wife was so mad because I ruined Thanksgiving for not only our family, but also for the entire family that I walked through their Thanksgiving celebration drunk.
Well, you got that as part of your resume.
Yeah.
What name did you end up with?
Man whore. I don't know if you remember back in the day that Deuce Bigelow was.
I do. The male gigolo
came out. And I was handing out my business cards because I got certified as a personal trainer. So I was handing out business cards during a processing line for an exercise. So people had to come through and get an intel brief. They'd have to check their dog tags, check their shot records, check their department folders. Well, I was handing out a business card for a personal trainer, and they're like, "God, you're such a whore. You're supposed to prepare people for deployment. You're trying to get business to be a personal trainer." I was like, "Well, why can't you kill 2 birds with 1 stone?"
Yeah. So we're all going to be out there anyway. Since
I was trying to sell myself in the processing line, they call me man whore.
That's good. There's some creativity behind that, at least.
Yeah.
I like that. When did you leave Misawa? What year?
I left Misawa in 2002, and then I went to Albuquerque, New Mexico, where I got divorced and found my wife.
Where were you? What base were you at New Mexico?
I was at Kirtland.
Or were you Army?
Oh, no.
Intel?
I was Kirtland Air Force Base in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Sorry, I blanked for a second. I was trying to think of Huachuca or something like that. But
oh, no. They've got Kirtland. They've got Alamogordo's got... There's 3 bases in New Mexico, and I've totally blanked on all of them but Kirtland.
Kirtland wasn't... that wasn't Green Door assignment, was it?
No, actually I went to... It's called the Distributive Mission Operations Center. And they do they got to do virtual flags, like how the Air Force does red flags, green flags. Yeah. Well, virtual flags were the same thing, except they used all simulators. So that's kind of cool.
So I got to go. DMOC you went out to.
Yep, DMOC.
Again, not really an ELINT assignment. So.
Oh, no, I was a lead briefer and mission planner and scenario developer for Air Force threats. So
you're almost doing some 1-0 type stuff, right?
Yeah, that's after my first assignment. All I did was 1-0 assignments from there forward.
Oh, jeez.
When you're doing a resume, because they're like, well, it says you were 1 in 5, but all these jobs are not 1 in 5. I'm like, yeah, I know. I was an all-source analyst.
I wanted to back up. When you were with Rivet Joint, you weren't flying with them, were you?
Oh, no. I took a couple of flights with them just to they called them FAM flights, familiarity flights. So I'd fly just to see how they did their missions. Yeah. But no, it was on the ground. So they would land and they'd give me the most, they had the big tapes they would send back to NASIC, but they had little small tapes that had significant events during the flight. And I would do analysis of those there on the ground and do a report for that.
Okay. I don't know that world. I know a lot of those analysts are flying on that plane. So I didn't know if that's a part of what you did or not.
Oh, no. One of the cool things I did while I was at Kirtland, though, so we'd have these virtual flags, and we'd probably have 200 people come in. So we'd have AWACS, Rivet Joint, Cobra Ball, F-15 guys, Joint Stars. They'd all come to Kirtland and fly in their own little simulator during the exercises.
Yeah.
But we also worked with the Nellis Range up at Nellis and took part of their red flag exercise briefings. So during one of our briefings, we'd have probably 200 people in the auditorium and watching via video teleconferences.
Wow.
AWACS crew comes up to me and they're like, hey, Jimmy, we'll give you $25 if you'll say Dirty Sanchez during your brief. And I was like, you got it. And then so the F-15 pilots are like, well, we can't top that, but we'll give you $5 if you say beans. I was like, okay, that's $30. All I've got to do is risk my entire career to earn $30. So I was like, during the presentation, I'm like, so we had this one guy, he's leaving this made-up country name to come over to us and to give us all of his information. His call sign was Dirty Sanchez, and he said he's willing to spill the beans. And the
you did it all.
Everybody in the audience that's under the age of 25 is just cracking up. I mean, they're their ass off. And then all the leadership, which is colonels and lieutenant colonels, all in the front row, they're just nodding their heads, yeah, this guy told us something very profound. You know what Dirty Sanchez is, obviously. So
well, you had to have a little asshole clinch right before you said it, right?
Oh, I totally did, because I was like, I don't know who's watching this video teleconference.
Right.
Because the next day, the F-15 guy's like, well, if you can do that, then I'm going to tell a joke. So he told that joke that, there's this F-16 pilot who crashed behind enemy lines, and they send in a SOF team to rescue him. These 2 SOF guys take the F-16 pilot, and they're walking out. They find this sheep with his head caught in the fence. Well, the first F-15, or the first SOF guy, walks up behind the sheep, has sex with him. The second SOF guy walks up behind the sheep and has sex with him. And they turn around and look at the F-16 pilot, and they said, now it's your turn. So the F-16 pilot unzips his flight suits and bends over. And they're like, no, it's your turn to screw the sheep. And the audience cracked up. Well, at that moment, the 2 or 3 star that was in charge of Nellis was on the video teleconference on Nellis's end.
Yeah.
And I guess that F-15 pilot got severely reprimanded. So I was thankful that my little senior airman ass didn't do that.
Right.
Because what would happen to a senior airman? Actually, I was a staff sergeant. what would happen to a staff sergeant that did that versus what would happen to a major in the F-16 community is totally different.
Sure. Sure. I wouldn't have the guts to do it because for like the next 24 hours, I'd be worried that I'm going to get the call. It's like, hey, you really think that's appropriate to be doing that stuff on the brief? You know, I would just be out of my mind worried about if somebody was going to call.
I wish I would.
You made $30 off it.
I made lots of bad choices.
Well, no, I mean, you did, but you didn't because it all finished at the end rather nicely. So
that's true. And I got $30.
And you got $30 and the admiration of a bunch of fighter jockeys. So.
Yeah. They're like, don't ask that guy to say anything because he's going to say anything. There's nothing that guy won't say.
So did you leave New Mexico? How long did you date your wife now?
Me and my wife dated for a year and a half. This is kind of funny. So we dated for a year and a half. I never went TDY even one time the entire time we were dating. We got married in July of 2006. And then in September of 2006, I left for remote to Korea. I was there for a year. As I'm coming back from Korea, probably 2 months before I left Korea, Colonel Wood from the 16th Space Control Squadron sends me an email while I'm in Korea. I'm supposed to get back in September. She sends me an email and say, hey, would you like to volunteer to deploy with Silent Sentry in January?
Udeid. In January.
I'd like to volunteer to deploy 2 months after I got home from or 3 months after I got home from a remote assignment.
Yeah. Right.
And she's like, well, if you don't volunteer for this one, we're going to send you in the summertime. I was like, well, okay, I'll volunteer then.
Oh, Jesus.
My family for 4 months right after I got home from being gone for a year, just so I don't have to leave during the summertime.
Golly.
Welcome into
space. How was that choice? How did that choice come about? Because you were still at Kirtland, right? I mean, wait. You went from Kirtland and then you went to Korea.
I went to Osan.
And so what was your follow-on assignment after Osan?
My follow-on assignment was supposed to be to Schriever to do a 1 in 2 job or 1 in 5 job out there. So I got my follow-on assignment like 6 months into my remote.
Okay. So how did they come with this choice to deploy for Silent Sentry?
Well, about my 8th month mark, the Schriever came back and said, we've canceled that position. So you don't have a follow-on to Schriever. So my senior enlisted advisor was kind enough to find me a spot on Peterson. There wasn't really a 1 in 5 position. So
of course not.
The 16th where it should have been 1 in 2s, which is a little different types of SIGINT than what 1 in 5s are.
Right.
So that's when I got the assignment to go to the 16th.
Oh, okay.
So at that point, being assigned to the 16th, Colonel Wood decided to send me an email and welcome me to the 16th by deploying me as soon as I got there.
So you didn't even get to set foot in the unit before you were out the door again.
So I was like telling my wife that, hey, I never deployed the entire time we were dating, and now I've left you for a year, and as soon as I get back, I'm gonna leave you for another 4 months. She was super excited about that.
Where was she at while you were in Korea?
She was still, because she's from Albuquerque, so she was still living in Albuquerque. And
okay. So she just stayed the whole time.
I got back in September. At July of that year, she moved. She did a Diddy move up to Colorado Springs with just her mom and her sister to help her move.
Yeah.
So when I got back, I already had a house and everything. I didn't have to do anything. It's kind of funny, but it's kind of a trend. So in 2007, while I was in Korea, she found us a home and moved all her stuff from Albuquerque to Colorado Springs. Then in 2010, while I was deployed with Silent Sentry, she found us a home to buy and moved everything. So when I got home from my deployment, we already had a home. Now, when I went to Afghanistan, I came home for R&R like 10 months into it.
Yeah.
And she had found us a home. All I had to do is come home and sign the paperwork. So 3 times I was gone while she found us a house, and I didn't have to do anything.
Well done.
I just have to figure out where to go next time because we want to buy one more house.
That's a good woman.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll close out the rest of this. So you're with the 16th. You deploy 3 times out to Udeid. 4 times.
I deployed 4 times, but I don't remember the last time because I was on so many narcotics that's when Plan B was created.
Right. So for those
Plan
listening,
B when we were talking with Jake and Scott.
Yeah. But that's when you and I were out on that deployment.
Yep.
For 4 months. How'd you hurt your back?
I can't say 100% it happened at this point.
Was it an event or was it just a chronic thing?
I was actually in deployment training down at Harris to go to to Qatar again.
Yeah.
I was in deployment training. I was driving to work one day, and this car, I don't know if you remember, right before the stoplight before you get to Harris Corp, there's a stoplight, and it's got like a sharp turn, and then there's a stoplight, and then you take the next little straight stretch, and you turn to go to the Harris. This car was going way too fast around that curve, and she just went straight off into the field and went nose down into the field.
Wow.
And a couple times, and it landed with the driver's door in the ground, and it was like sticking up in the air. The car was.
Yeah.
And there was smoke coming out from under the hood, and so I ran over there, and the car was still running, and she's trapped in the car. So another truck driver had stopped, and he was jumping out of his truck, and in hindsight, I made a really poor choice, knowing what I've known now about injuries and stuff from watching different TV shows. But I just grabbed a hold of the door on the driver's side and picked up the car and flipped it back on its tires. And
damn,
it did more damage to her than I saved her from because she's all flopping around in the seats in the car lane. And but so I did that so I could get to the key and turn the car off and cut the fuel supply off.
Yeah.
And then the truck driver runs over there. We get the hood popped, sprays it with the fire extinguisher and puts the fire out. But, at the moment I did that, I thought it was a great choice because I was just acting on adrenaline.
Sure.
We saw her. It was funny. We saw her at the JCPenney at the mall, like 3 months later, and she had a neck brace on, or both her eyes were black. And I'm thinking to myself, you probably wouldn't be in a neck brace if it wasn't for me. Your neck would be fine. But, she added me as a friend on Facebook, and we've been friends ever since. And it's just cool that.
Was she military or was she civilian?
No, she was a civilian. She wasn't even part of affiliated with the military at all.
Huh. Well, I'm sure she had all that injury before you superhumanly flipped that car over.
I don't know. I like to think she did. I like to think I didn't break her neck.
Well, hopefully she's forgiven you at least.
Yeah. She seems she's a really nice girl.
That's fantastic. That's unbelievable. But that's what you think you wrenched your back?
That's when the back pain started. And then I was deployed with Mitch and Lieutenant Gaynor.
Yeah.
And working out one day at the gym. And so the back pain started. But then that one day we were at the gym. I forgot what we were doing, but it's just like this pain shot down my leg. And
oh, yeah.
That's when I developed a sciatica. And I got back to the Air Force back at Peterson. I went to the good old flight surgeon, and she said, there's nothing wrong with your back. And she kept on telling me that for like 6 months. I was like, there's something wrong with my back.
Yeah.
And she did x-rays, but she wouldn't do an MRI or anything like that, which is how you discover disc damage, not through an x-ray.
Of course.
And then finally, after a while, she's like, okay, there's something wrong with your back. And I was like, oh, really?
Oh, Jesus.
They did so much to me. I had my first back surgery, and after the back surgery, probably 3 months later, she put me on, and she took my profile completely off and put me back on full PT.
God bless, man.
Sit-ups and running is the worst thing you can do right after you've had a back surgery.
Sure, the compression. Yeah, the compression killing it.
So I screwed it up again and had to have another surgery when I got back from a deployment.
Yeah.
Surgery right after we got back from the deployment, we went together. And Jake would make fun of me because we'd be walking from the Cadillac where our dorms were over to the chow. And I would get down on my hands and knees in the sand and I'd curl up in the position, and Jake would just stand there and laugh at me. and point at me and be like, "Oh, look at this little baby laying on the ground." Because it's Jake. Because Jake's a jerk. And
Jake should have been like a 1950s gym teacher.
he would have been amazing with those really tight shorts, really short, tight shorts, and tall socks.
Yeah, he could have shamed every kid that ever came in contact with.
Yeah.
He would have
But
been
the good
perfect.
news is Jake was up every morning for shift. Like I slept in every single day.
Yeah.
Because I was on so many narcotics.
I know.
I'd be like, "Hey, it's time to go to work." I'm like, "Oh, thanks, Jake."
I don't really know how they even deployed you being on narcotics.
I lied to my commander and told him I was fine.
Oh, okay. Now that comes into a little sharper focus now.
I mean, yeah, nobody at that point, a lot of guys had just deployed and they didn't want to go back right after that. And I was like, "Well, I haven't deployed for years, so I feel fine." Well, I did not feel fine. So for 4 months we were over there.
Yeah.
Me and Jake were on one shift with Bounty Hunter, and Mitch and Anthony Leaks were on the other shift.
Yeah.
Then Eric Puzzle was our maintainer, and he just pretty much slept in the refrigerated maintenance room the whole time we were there.
Eric Jostle.
Yep, shocker. But it was funny because seriously, I would take my pills at the beginning. Before I left the dorms to come over to work, I'd take my pain pills, and I would get to the cab, and the best way to stretch my back out was I'd get on my hands and knees and then go into like that yoga fetal position pose.
Yeah.
A lot of times I would just fall asleep right there, and then I would wake up like hours later, and the shift's halfway over. I'm like, "This is awesome. We're almost done, guys." And Jake's like, "Yeah, I've done all the work. You've done nothing but sleep."
Well, and it does kind of suck because that after we got back from that deployment, I got in my accident later that year, and then my whole next year was trying to unscrew myself from that accident. So I kind of lost touch with everybody else, and I apologize for losing touch with you. But when did you? 2 questions. When did you leave the 16th, and where did you go to? And then, when did you get your back finally kind of resolved?
Okay, so I had a disectomy for my back in 2009. I had a
wait. Say that again.
It's a disectomy. It's like a vasectomy, but it's a discectomy. Whether you pronounce it disectomy.
A disc.
They go in there. I had a bulging disc, and they just go in there and they shave that portion of the disc off that's sticking out on your spine.
Oh, okay.
It's a pain, but guess what? It doesn't fix anything because your spine is still herniated, so it just comes right back out again.
Oh, yeah.
Then in 2012, I had a fusion, and that made things slightly better. And then,
so after we got back from our deployment, you went for a back fusion?
So after we got back from our deployment, I was taking a box of stuff to the Goodwill for my wife. And as I was twisting to put the box down, my entire lower body went numb.
Oh, geez.
At that point, that twisting, bending motion caused my disc to shoot out of my spine. If I would have coughed or sneezed, I would have shit myself right there. So I was thankful I wasn't sneezing and coughing. So my doctor, for emergency fusion, they went in there, removed that disc completely out of my spine, and put a cadaver disc in there and put some screws in me. I left Colorado Springs in December of 2013. PCS to Charlottesville. Once I got to Charlottesville, they didn't have a base here, like a real base. They didn't have logistics or personnel or anything like that. It was just a building that we all worked in.
Is that the DIA portion?
Hospitals and local doctors, which is really awesome because UVA, University of Virginia, has a great hospital.
Oh, good.
So I started going there, and my doctor was like, "Whoever did your back surgery in Colorado Springs did not do a great job, so I'm going to redo it for you."
Nice.
So at the point, he fused 2 vertebrae and put bolts into my hips, and I have not had a single bit of pain in my back since that point, and that was in 2014.
Oh my God! Born again, huh?
Oh, I forgot. Back in '97, when I was still stationed at Wright-Patterson, I got rear-ended by a drunk driver, and I had TBI. I I was in the hospital, swelling brain, and they told my ex-wife I was going to probably die in the next 24 hours.
Jesus.
Surprisingly, I'm here. But I had really bad whiplash from that. And I guess it just continued to deteriorate over the years. So I just had an extra year and a half ago by the same doctor.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah. Amazing. I would recommend him to anybody.
Yeah.
I know I kind of jumped around there on you.
No, I didn't know the sequence of stuff. So you left and went to your last assignment, DIA Charlottesville.
Yep, DIA Charlottesville. And it's weird because there's like 3 buildings in this little fenced off area.
DIA is Defense Intelligence Agency.
Yeah, so it's like a remote site. So DIA is up in DC. The big DIA is up at Andrews Air Force Base.
Right.
But here it's just like one big building. It's like 5 stories tall, and there's just a ton of analysts in there doing stuff in support of the big DIA.
Okay.
There's also the Army INSCOM, Intelligence Command for Army, is here at Charlottesville as well, with the National Ground Intelligence Center, or NGIC. Or as the locals like to call it, NINJIC, which is, it's not NINJIC. Anyway, so you'll see a lot of the analysts, once they get out of the military, they'll be contractors or government civilians, and they'll just kind of float around between those 3 buildings because it's either DIA or NGIC, and you just kind of go back and forth based on whatever job openings there are.
Okay. And that was your last assignment, and that's where you retired from in 2016.
Yep, I retired from DIA in 2016, got a contractor job with DIA that same year.
You ever keep in touch with anybody like you went to basic with or first assignment?
There's a few guys, my first assignment, that I keep in touch with because, oddly enough, a lot of us that were at NASIC together.
Yeah.
Ended up, 2 of the guys I was with ended up going to Japan within a few months of me. So we were at NASIC together for 3 years, and we were at Japan together for 4 years. And so, there's 2 guys I've kept in contact with ever since, my first assignment. And that's kind of cool because Intel is such a small community that it's, you have friends in common with somebody, or you'll know somebody that knows somebody. So that's cool.
Right. How do you look back at that career? Satisfied?
I'm satisfied. I wish I'd made better choices along the way, especially when it comes to myself by going where I went. I had a lot of fun, but as far as career-wise, I didn't get the classes I wish I would have gotten. But
sure,
it was a great career.
I agree.
I would do it again and again and again. I would never not go in the Air Force if I had to go over it again in my life. I wish everybody joined the military for 2 years.
I kind of, there's a piece of that. I wish they would too, at least for one hitch. We can. I look forward to if we can get everybody on to the real stories, the real behind the scenes stories. The prankster stories, if you will.
It seemed like they were all in a couple of deployments.
What's your crown and achievement in the Air Force? Who'd you get the best?
I got Jake best, but it didn't.
Did you?
It was supposed to. So me and Jake were working together when we were in the little ops floor over at the 16th Old Building. You know how they set it up for?
Sure. And for those listening, Jake is Master Sergeant retired Wall from episodes back. So
Senior Master Sergeant.
Oh, that's right. Senior Master Sergeant.
Also, I just want to address the fact that I heard Chief Cherry call himself Senior Cherry when he was talking about the commander. That's on recording. I heard him say it.
Yeah, he did, didn't he?
Yep.
Oh, I didn't pick that up. Yeah, I remember you said that.
That made my last 5 years. I just made it for me. I was like, that son of a bitch. He just said Senior Cherry. I couldn't call you Senior Smith at all because everybody's all but heard about it. I was like, damn.
I wasn't. The only one who was being an ass about it was Westfall.
he just did that. I think prior or after Air Force and when we were working together, I fucking love that guy. But I think he just liked to antagonize the shit out of people at work.
So
back to Jake.
Jake Wall, yeah.
So we're working on the little ops floor in the building, And I would be like, hey, Jake, are you thirsty? I'm going to go get some coffee. You want some? So I would go get me and him coffee, and I'd take I started off just doing one X-Lax pill in his coffee. Stirred up, get back to him. Nothing happened. Jake's got an iron stomach, because let me tell you the rest of the story. I would increase that every time I'd get him coffee over the next 4 days, 5 days. I would add one more X-Lax pill to it. So I started off with one on, say, Monday. Tuesday, I gave him 2. Wednesday, I gave him 3. Thursday, I gave him 4. And finally, Friday, I had put 5 X-Lax pills in his coffee, mixed it up, took it back to him. Nothing happened. I was so pissed off. I was like, how is he not shitting his brains out? Because I have loaded you up over the last 5 days with 5, 9, 12, 14 X-Lax pills in 5 days, and you are not shitting your brains out.
Yeah.
And that was all because the time he locked me in the bathroom when we were deployed. Back at him, and it didn't work, so I was pretty heartbroken.
Did you ever cop to it?
Oh yeah. He's like, oh man, I was wondering why you were bringing me coffee all the time and being nice. Well, you should have known better.
But he's such an iron gut that nothing happened to him.
Nothing even happened. I'm like, God damn you, Jake.
And how long did he lock you in the bathroom for?
So, this is why I love Jake so much. I was agonizing in pain all the time for that deployment.
Yeah.
But when I'd go to that beautiful Cadillac we had, Jake would come out there, know I was in the bathroom. He'd take that bench that was sitting there and lean it up against the door. So when I opened the door, the bench would fall on me. And Jake just thought that was so funny. But one day, he says it was an accident. I believe he planned it. He put the bench underneath the door handle. And so when I tried to open the door to leave, it wouldn't turn. Yeah. So I was stuck there for 45 minutes waiting on somebody to come out, because Eric usually goes to the bathroom to take a nap like 12 times a day.
Yeah.
So I was thinking either Eric's going to take a nap or the TCNs are going to come by to clean the Cadillac. Well, finally the TCNs came by and clean the Cadillac out, and they opened the door for me.
They did?
Yeah. I walked back in the office. I was so pissed. So on that deployment also, me and Jake, we would bash each other with this big old foam roller. You know, those things you use to roll.
I remember that, yes.
Well, I was sitting at the computer checking my email, and Jake comes out and bashes me at that. I was so fucking mad. I was like, fucking Jake. Like, I was just locked in the goddamn bathroom for the last 45 minutes because you think you're fucking funny. He's like, oh. That's the only time I ever got mad at Jake, but it was gone in like 5 seconds. I was like, you son of a bitch. I was like, I'm going to get you back.
Because he finally got that rise out of you.
One of these days, but I tried. It just didn't work. Jake was better than me.
He had more longevity.
Yeah.
He had the will to keep doing it.
For all I know, Jake ran to the bathroom and shit his brains out for 5 days and just wouldn't tell me.
He would never tell you.
This is awful, but I'm not letting him know.
Yeah, he's a special kind of prankster, that's for sure. Well, on that note, Jimmy, thanks for covering your career. It's been an honor to hear your story and know that we're all connected in that same kind of service. Yep.
Well, thanks for talking with me, and I'm more than happy to talk to you anytime over anything. It doesn't have to be a podcast. If you just want to chit-chat about some shit, just give me a call.
I'll take you up on that. I'll definitely take you up on that. And there'll be more to come when we get the whole defensive counter space band back together. We'll tell some more stories.
Amazing.
Well, thanks for taking time on Sunday, Jimmy. It's been a pleasure.
Yep, same here. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, you too.
On behalf of Master Sergeant Retired Jimmy Smith, I'd like to thank you for listening today. There's one more thing I'd like to say about Jimmy. In 2012, I was in a bad motorcycle accident, and before I even got out of the hospital to come home, Jimmy had put an electric recliner in my house for my recovery. I'll never forget that gesture, as one serviceman took care of another without even being asked. Thanks, Jimmy. I appreciate it. So I hope you enjoyed the show today, and if you did, please leave a like or a comment and share the podcast with someone else. And, as always, make sure to download the next episode for more service origin stories. So until next time, on your feet, fall out!